China unveils numerous new military vehicles. Corruption among the ranks of US intelligence. And MAGA's immigration controversy continues. This and more on Dangerous Waters. This is the Dangerous Waters podcast where we dive deep into dangerous waters. I'm your host, Alex, and in today's episode, we got a couple of topics to talk about. The first major one is what is going on in China. Recently, China has been showing off numerous new military vehicles, ships, planes. It's really incredible stuff. Let's get into what just happened. So first, the major breakthrough in the news was that there were two sixth-generation warplanes shown off by China over the past day, and this was really an unexpected move. No one thought China was capable of flying these types of things until now. This is really on the offset of a multi-year-long war in which the United States and China were racing to see who could develop the first sixth-generation stealth aircraft. As of now, the United States already has the B-21 bomber, but in terms of the replacement for the F-35 and the F-22, there appear to be multiple delays and funding problems and just a lot of developmental hell going on in the behind the scenes. However, China recently just decided to show off what they had as of now. These are two prototypes of their sixth-generation fighters. I wouldn't expect them to come into service anytime soon, at least in the next couple of years. But the framework of the planes have already come out. So you have the first one, which some people theorize to be the J-36 or the JHXX. Really hard to say for now, but this fighter is much larger than the F-22, much larger than most other fighter jets. They are really more of a hybrid serving role. They have long-range missiles. They are meant for longer-range missions, similar to a bomber and a fighter at the same time, so a mixture of both. And then you have a smaller form factor sixth generation design, which is probably going to be carrier-based and meant for lesser range missions. At the same time, the Chinese military also unveiled the world's largest assault ship. This is similar to an aircraft carrier in scale, a light aircraft carrier, as the Chinese say. And what it'll allow China to do is really serve as sort of a mini military base that will be able to launch aircraft, helicopters, drones, all sorts of things, very damaging to American interests in the first island chain especially. And finally, they also came out with an airborne early warning and control system plane. Really, all of this added together is a big flex on China's part in trying to show the rest of the world, and especially the United States, that they have the military-industrial complex capable of producing completely domestic machines, equipment that are synchronized, integrated with each other, and can serve a real threat against American interests. So we shall see what eventually comes out, especially with those sixth-generation fighters or bombers. Very, very fascinating stuff. The United States still has yet to publicly showcase any of their sixth-generation designs, and I doubt it'll be the foreseeable future when that happens. So as of now, China seems to be visibly ahead in the sixth-generation fighter race. However, we still don't know what the future will hold. For our next story, we have an explosive report coming in from the Wall Street Journal about COVID origin reporting from the U.S. intelligence agencies to Biden. And this is something that really, I'm not surprised that it happened, but ultimately it did. It really shows the shortcomings of U.S. intelligence, especially with the politicization of everything. So what happened? First, President Biden ordered a 90-day investigation for intel agencies to determine what they believed were the origins of the COVID virus. After the 90-day investigative sprint ended with these intel agencies, they were supposed to report their findings to the president. However, the FBI was suspiciously not invited to this meeting. Now, what makes this so fascinating and why there may potentially be motive behind this is that the FBI, out of all the intelligence agencies that were reporting to the president, were the only group that concluded that a lab leak was possible with medium confidence. All the other intel agencies said that they did not find an origin, and their conclusions were in low confidence. A smaller medical group within the Defense Intelligence Agency also found that the lab leak theory was incredibly plausible, and that was their conclusion. However, that was not reflected in the overall DIA assessment of the origins of the virus. It was not reported at all. The president had no idea of their findings. Now, when you combine this information with the White House also funding over $1 billion to the CDC to help push certain narratives about the virus, as well as using federal intelligence agencies to crack down on social media users who had dissenting voices, we have a story in which it is very possible that the handlers of the Biden administration had a politicized agenda to push. They wanted to make sure that America was subservient to those agendas, but now this report has come out. It blows a hole in the water, but ultimately it is a positive that reports like these are coming out. Unfortunately, they are coming out too late, but it goes to show that you have to have a level of skepticism when you are seeing what the government is saying. You cannot just trust them at face value, and I think more people are realizing this day by day. Finally, for our last major topic of the day, we have more updates with MAGA's immigration controversy. The controversy started on Twitter/X, and it continues to this day. And essentially, it boils down to, are you pro-skilled legal immigration, or are you anti-immigration in general? Lines are already being drawn. It is a contentious space on Twitter. However, the really fascinating thing that I've been noticing throughout this time, not just with this issue, but also if you look back to Speaker Johnson's tenure, is that the MAGA movement is a little too short-sighted. This is supposed to be a long-term movement to make America great again, but these people oftentimes get far too hung up on small issues and are essentially at risk of destroying the entire credibility of the movement just because they want some short-term goal pushed through. If you look at what happened in Congress, Mike Johnson came out with a bill at first, it got rejected, probably for the better, and then it went through, it passed Congress with significantly fewer Democratic demands. Most of the Republican demands were held intact, so already that's a massive win for the Republican side and for the MAGA movement. However, people were then complaining that, he didn't get everything the MAGA movement wanted, so therefore we should remove him from speakership. I think that's ridiculous. Mike Johnson is doing his best in this position, and ultimately, you cannot just say, I don't like this person because they didn't do 100% of my demands, they only did 90%, so we should get him out of office. That is not how this works. And then you also have this immigration issue where people are going in and saying, who cares what Trump said about legal immigration? If you look at what Trump has actually been saying about legal immigration, he supports it. He wants people who are educated in America to have green cards. That this is a very pro-legal immigration position, but some of these fanatic MAGA people are saying, no, Trump ran for office because he wanted to stop immigration. This is supposed to be an America First movement. And saying things like that is a really bad look on the credibility of not just them as people, but also the movement in general. Because who were the people that got Trump into office? It wasn't the hardcore anti-immigration crowd. It was the moderate crowd of middle-class people who want a better living and who are seeing the negative economic effects of what happened during high inflation. That is the core demographic of how Trump was able to win this election. And if you just come in and say, I hate all immigration, one, that's a complete reversal of a core American cultural tenet. But secondly, that makes people who voted for Trump because of these reasons, of economic reasons, start to think twice about whether or not they made the right decision. And if you are the MAGA movement and you want to combine these people and create a coalition who actually wants to make America great again, you have to have the support necessary to do so. To do that, you need to build a broad coalition of people who generally have the same ideals for the nation, but then are able to compromise here and there, but essentially push a united front. And this is why the Democrats keep winning, because the Democrats are able to push united fronts. When they are against an issue of the Republican side or of MAGA, they completely coalesce with each other and they are able to stop it. They are able to brick wall this. But on the Republican side, they are just far too short-sighted. They don't see any of the potential of compromise, of maybe we don't have everything we want right now. We could have a majority and then we'll work out the details as we go on. But out of the vocal minority of people on Twitter, you just do not see that sentiment at all. However, at the end of the day, I do believe that the anti-immigration position is vastly unpopular. They are making a fuss on Twitter, but ultimately it will not result in much real-world change. So anyone who is going into this administration sort of being a little concerned about the rhetoric that's being called from the MAGA side, I think that's not going to be a problem. Trump himself is pro-legal immigration, along with any other person who has any chance of seeking success in American politics today, and I expect policies that will reflect that. Let's get into rapid-fire news. Our first story from New York Times. South Korean lawmakers impeach acting president as crisis deepens. From Washington Post. Netanyahu says the fight against the Houthis is only getting started. From the Wall Street Journal. Finland seizes a tanker linked to Russia after more undersea Baltic cables cut. And finally, from The Guardian. Panama president dismisses Trump's threats over the canal. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in to the Dangerous Waters show. If you like this episode, feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want to do. In any case, happy holidays, happy new year. I'll see you all in the next one.